welcome to the Billion Dollar Banker podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Perrone, and I am so excited for our guest today. Today, we have with us Eric Brody, who's a 20-year industry veteran real estate developer in the mid-market multifamily sector out in New York City. He also is super tech forward. He's enabled this amazing capital advisory firm to really take off. 40 projects that he's developed himself as a real estate investor, 800 units under his belt. He has been seen on The Real Deal, IMN, BizNow, all the social platforms you could absolutely think of. And today he's going to talk to us all about what he's doing. And guys, I can't wait to hear more from him. Eric, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks a million for having me. And before we get started, if you are actually watching this, I look much younger than being in this space for 20 years. You can't tell, but 20 years sounds like a long time. There was a time when I was young and I was like, one day someone's going to be saying, you're in it 20 years. Here it is. And damn,
There's only a little bit of gray in the beard there. That's just a little bit.
There's a lot of gray in the beard. It's horrible.
Well, you look great. And your social platform is amazing. What you're doing is incredible. So tell the audience a little bit about who you are and what your company does.
100%. So just to start, we're all real estate based. It's like, how do we get in this business? Are you an entrepreneur? Do you want to be a leader? Right? Because real estate, the space itself is just filled with the entrepreneurial spirit. So in one sentence, what do? We are an enabled capital advisory firm. Then people say, well, what does that mean? Capital advisory is creating a market. We perceive that there is a known universe of humans that need asset-backed capital for real estate. They'd be like, what the hell does that mean? Well, are you a developer? You need money up and down the cap stack, multifamily, retail. As long as it's not in your space, which is mortgages, they come to us. Now, on the other side of that equation is there a universe of capital that you can identify? Co-GP, GP, pref, mez, senior, doesn't matter, the capital side, but that's not the nuance. Are you capable of finding that universe, which we perceive to be about 1.5 million people, collecting their information into a usable database so that when someone comes in with the deal, we can match it to the capital, all right? That is what being enabled means, is that technology allows us to create flywheels of efficiency. But don't forget, you and I are in real estate. We are still Neanderthals. We all want to talk to each other. So technology is just creating efficiency down the stack to eventually have a human conversation. One day we'll all be AI, and this conversation, me and you will have been, made up together off of our language models that know how you and I speak. But still today, we're still talking to humans.
We're here. Yeah, thankfully, right? I mean, we'll be like teleporting to each other soon. And then after that, we'll just be gone. We'll just be, robot versions of ourselves, I'm sure. So tell us
But
about
you and I
this...
still have some time to make money. All right. So we're good. We're safe.
We got a little bit of time left, which is good to know. And I know you have some amazing insight into the outlook into the CRE space. I was looking at your website. But tell us about that pivot that you made in your career here to kind of shift into this tech forward way of a capital advisory.
100%. So the second revenue stream, because when you look at life, you have revenue and investment. You got to make this money, right? Then you invest that capital. Real estate development, when I speak at Columbia, NYU, I tell the kids, I go, how do you think do you want to be a developer? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, there's two ways to be a developer. I'm like, okay, are you rich? And then they're like, ha ha. I'm like, no, I'm serious. Because if you could just buy an asset, putz around, try to make it work. I don't know if your basis will work, but if you have the capital, you can experiment in it. The other side is you have to have credibility, which is expertise and trustworthiness in the space for other people to give you the capital. So we work developers in the mid-market space here in wonderful NYC with blinders on. I grew up in Brooklyn. I got to make sure that I'm going to build and develop NYC. Why would I go to Florida? Maybe because half the universe is moving there. Why would I be in Texas? Maybe because it's blowing up. But here, got to be in New York or nowhere. So we wind up being a mid-market builder developer. What does that mean? I don't know. I did $100 million deals. I built 218 units in a development in Williamsburg. I just finished 80 units on the waterfront in Greenpoint. Beautiful. We would build and develop. So I ran a construction company. I would find the asset. I'd create the joint venture. I would raise the capital. I would get the debt. And I was the Machiavellian principal. I was responsible for executing on that business plan. And maybe I never would have changed. Life was plugging along. I was the big man, externally validating myself. I'm the developer.
Yeah. Yep.
Then this black swan comes in, which is a once
Oh,
in a lifetime event called the coronavirus. I just finished a 21-story building, 50 units on the Upper East Side. And I opened the doors to development. If you understand the paradigm, there's no market. Actually, we all think we're going to die. Well, like in Goodfellas, where I forget the guy's name, but he lends you money. And
yes.
then, oh, the deliveries didn't come. F you, pay me. There was a problem with the band. They didn't come. F you, pay me. Well,
Yep.
guess
Where's
what?
the
The banks
money?
are the same way. The banks go, we understand that there's a once in a lifetime event called coronavirus, but guess what? F you, pay me. So the
Time's up.
lender starts the foreclosure proceedings because there's no marketplace and I don't have the money to pay the interest. Boom, they foreclose me out, wipe out the equity. Then they come after you for carry guarantees. Boom, they win that. So now, right, you have to look at yourself and say, everything that I perceived I was has now been taken from me. Okay. And if you understand the development game and the risk that you take, so now I'm down. I'm down big time.
By the way, pivotal moment right here in when your back is against the wall in business, or when you take that hit, that biggest punch you ever took. This is like the definition of real character and real business acumen. I think this moment right here is what inspires me, and it is so impressive about your background. So I'm excited to hear about it. So what's next?
Oh, the fact remains you only know what you truly are when
Mm.
everything is taken from you and your back is to the wall, and that your daily existence can be absolutely so miserable. So you have choices to make. What do you want to do? An article just came out in the Real Deal. There were 4 developers in the article, okay, and you
Mm-hmm.
can find it. And my quote is, in the MMA fight of life, when I'm getting my ass kicked, I decided to look internally, because there's this guy. Carl Jung is a famous philosopher who says, those who look externally dream, those who look internally realize. So it's like, what are you really made out of? Of the 4 people in the article, 2 of those developers who had judgments against them wind up killing themselves. So like, this is real ish. And then me and my other friend of mine who's a developer decide to make the comeback, because this is what it's all about. Okay, so this is like the personal side, whatever. So I get that kicked out of me in the MMA fight of life. All right. This isn't recent. This isn't like 10 years ago. This was recent.
Mm-hmm.
And lucky enough for me, I settled that. So like, we're back, baby. But
Let's
during that
go.
time, okay, during that time, let's get to business. I go hunting. Now I'm a New Yorker. I don't, shoot guns, but a friend of mine's like, I think you need to get out of your comfort zone. So I'm in Colorado with these special force operators, and they teach me 2 things. They say, 1, you have to do an after action report of what went right and what went wrong. And 2 is you need to look within. And I'm like, if these human killers are telling me that you need to start looking at your emotional and spiritual health, let me tell you something. It doesn't make me less of a man to look at it.
Now you still feel
So
manly and vulnerable at the same time. I love it.
100%. So the second thing is, they say in an after action report. So I start researching. I find this data analytics platform. I wind up investing in it, called Market Proof. Shout out to Market Proof. But basically, the data analytics said as follows: binary data. This is inventory on the market, shadow inventory, rate of absorption. If I take the amount of inventory, I divide it by the rate of absorption in this micro market, there's 10 years of product coming to market. Why the F would you have gotten a construction loan, taken the risk, and developed it? Now look at the other side, sort of the market information. Lender gave me 70 million, investors raised 20 million, but the binary data was telling a completely different story. So as a type A personality, my partner and I, Mark, research 9,000 tech companies. We write a 250-page report. We're like, what do we do now? I'm like, let's start a venture fund. Why? Because why not? We raise money from our friends and family in a venture fund. Then we say, how are we going to create an ecosystem to drive that intelligence to communicate with us? I read Tim Ferriss's Tool of Titans. He had a podcast. I say, F it, I'll do a podcast. So I create the Real Tech Talk podcast, which is basically a platform for these technology CEOs to come on and talk to me about real estate and technology. Now that ecosystem, they say that you got to have smart people around you. That was amazing. Then the Real Deal comes to me and says, hey, you're doing really well on like that podcast. We love listening to you. Do you want to do some TV shows? I'm like, hell yeah. The future's marketing. I don't know if we know that. We're on a podcast right now. The future is marketing. If you can drive that funnel to you, you'll see what you sell, right? You'll see what product that you can. So I didn't know exactly what I was doing, but my partner and I are like, fine. So now people came to me and said, are you a podcaster? I'm like, no. They're like, are you a venture capitalist? I'm like, no. They're like, you work for the Real Deal? I'm like, no. we said, what's the application of all of these disparate things to real estate? So we take a look at real estate, and real estate is a laggard industry. We're not paying attention to the changes around us, and it's simple. Why? We're already rich. We already think we know what we're doing. Everyone's doing well. Why change anything? So it's the perfect time to really explore something else. So me and my partner look at the real estate industry and we're like, the way in which we're raising capital is just so behind the eight ball. How are you getting a message out there that you're looking for capital? And real estate will say it's a relationship business, relationship, as if there's some firewall in front of them that you can't create those relationships. We're like, well, we developed, we're a credible party. We can use technology to enhance that message. How do you circumvent a relationship so that more people want to chit chat with you? We're like, well, if me and you met Joe Rogan right now, we wouldn't be like, hey, is their name Joe? We'd be like, yo, I'm on TRT and I've been taking psilocybin and I'm exploring, and you'd be. So the point is, creating content can create relationships. So then we get into the capital advisory, which I was talking to you about, which is when you match capital to a deal, you make a fee. It's a simple game. Can you find the universe of capital? Can you find the universe of deals and then create a capital advisory firm?
And so
boom,
now
that's what we did.
This is all happening now. So first of all, I love the story about how you pivoted, right? You said, okay, this is happening. Where's the opportunity, right? And that's how I like, the harder you work, the luckier you get, the more opportunity you're searching for, the more prepared you are once it comes. And then the biggest part is like you taking action on it. Like, okay, podcast, I'm prepared. There's an opportunity. I'm taking action, right? Okay. Technology, like you're seeing opportunities all around you. And you think about, that's why they say like the streets are lined with money, because if you have the right mindset, you can see that opportunity and then like taking action on it's a whole new thing. What do you think, like what drives you to do that? What drives you to say, you know what, opportunity, I'm going after it?
So there's this great podcast with the CIA guy, and he always says, and I don't want to be cavalier about it, trauma, my childhood trauma, what keeps me moving? It's like, I've got to keep moving. God forbid I sit still, So
I love it.
Technically that's the engine. But at the end of the day, you have to accept who you are. But for me, it's like this. You learn. As long, if you're a doer in the universe, meaning, I got to learn a new subject. So what? I gotta make more phone calls. So what? Like, who cares? Nobody cares. Just do it, right? So for me, my father said, just get out of bed, which inherently is just meaning like you've got to continue to push forward and make an attempt to do something. And what happens is, you'll go into the wheels fall off and you'll get sick and then you'll come back, right? You're pushing yourself harder than you possibly can, but then opportunity comes, right?
Absolutely.
So if you have good childhood trauma, you'll be fine.
It'll be a way to turn your failures into, or your trauma into triumph, right? And that kind of speaks to the article that you were just recently in The Real Deal. And you mentioned that briefly with the 4 developers. Title of that was The Daily Dirt. Developers open up about failure and seeking help. How, did you come up with that subject? Because I thought it is phenomenal. Everyone talks about their success, and here you are talking about failure.
So let's talk 2 things, because we have an audience of real estate people, right? And for them, they want to know, they don't want to know necessarily about the fall down, or they'll talk about it. They want to understand the comeback. So in this moment, we are now developing a 50-unit project in Manhattan. A lender foreclosed on the principal developer, unfortunately, took back the asset. Then they became the equity, right? There's no more debt if you become the principal and foreclose. They then said to themselves, we got to get our money back. Right? How do we get our money back? We need then a principal developer to take over this asset. So for us, we earn a fee to take over the asset. And we're doing that also on a deal in Queens. In addition, we have closings coming up in the next 90 days of $60 million in construction and development financing all around the country. Amazing. So the comeback is happening in the moment. And we just want to be factual to our audience that everything you and I are saying is the truth, that this is actually now working. Everything that we just talked about, the thesis and the theory of it, is coming true. And by the time the market really recognizes what we're doing, we hope it's too late. Okay, just in general. Now, to go back to that article, the article was like, real estate has this problem. Real estate had this perception. I'm telling you, it's just no longer true that you had to be perfect. That like the money is coming out of my butthole. Like that everything you do is amazing and you're always winning.
Right.
And even the guys that were about to get wiped out would tell me, no, we got the money. I'm like, bro, it's impossible that you're not about to get foreclosed out. I know the number one bankruptcy and workout attorney. I know what's happening, and yet still your public persona is I'm great. I'm amazing. What I found out is when you actually show vulnerability, even if you're under fire, the billionaires talk to me, the family offices talk to me because they're more interested in the comeback post a downfall than this idea that everything is perfect because the greatest people out there know that they had failed. They just failed upwards. And everyone talks about that's corny. It is corny. And when you're in it, it really hurts. But the fact remains, you have to keep moving to be able to look back one day and say, that was my greatest triumph.
Right.
But when you're living it, it sucks.
And that pain gives you purpose, right? And I mean, look, if you can't get motivated at that point, it's like, where are you going to go? You can't go down any further. You have to go up. So I love that concept, fail up. So now what if people are looking to invest in some of these deals that you have going on? How are they going to use your tech platform for capital purposes and to get involved?
So two things. We're going to get to that. The first one, though, on your last point is there's a great book called Man's Search for Meaning about an Auschwitz survivor who was a psychologist who survived Auschwitz where 1 in 5 people had died. And he quoted Nietzsche, if you remember Nietzsche, this philosopher. And he said, as long as you have a why, don't worry about the how. Right? So you have to have a why. And my why was simple. I had 2 little girls. I had to prove to myself that I was really a warrior. And as long as I had the why, the how eventually worked itself out. So you ask me, how do you survive that? You got to have a why. Amen. Maybe it's to prove something about yourself, your family. I don't know what it is. You figure out what your why is, your partner, whatever.
Right.
Now, how do they get involved with the platform? So what's most fascinating, and I think is really important for the audience to realize, is like I had said before, real estate is a bunch of Neanderthals. You can't say tech to anybody. They won't listen to you, okay? Real estate still wants to be spoken to, wants to be talked to. It's fine. It's what's under the hood that we have that is bionic. When it comes to if they're like, is there a platform? There's no platform. Email me. What's up, E? We got this deal we're trying to finance. Hey, Eric, I have capital looking to be deployed in this type of asset class. Everything is just a conversation. What's under it in the efficiencies in creating 5 flywheels of redundant tasks is what's automated. Your experience will be just like anyone else. You have a smart capital advisor who did development, he did construction, he understands tech, he understands finance, and you're having a conversation. It's how I got to you that is the secret sauce of the tech, that we're having this conversation.
Right.
So to the normal person, I'm capital advisor. Call me up. You got a deal? I want to finance it. I should know more people at any one time looking to finance your deal than what I like to call is humanly possible. It's not humanly possible to know as many people as I do. I don't even forget what I said 2 seconds ago, but I have an easily recallable database of accurate information that is consistently updated about every deal that's closing at any time. I then use that to my advantage.
That's incredible. I love that. And you know what? Sometimes it's interesting because sometimes the how, just you have the why, and the how will kind of prevent you from moving forward sometimes because you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many steps to figure out how. Like you talked about your partner earlier before we came on, how he's always looking for how to do it better, right? And so if you have the why and the how together, and you and recognizing that you're going to figure out that how little by little as you go, and I think being open and honest about that is critical. So people are coming to find you when they're looking for money for these deals predominantly, right? And so are you financing only multifamily specifically, or are you getting into some other areas? And I know now you're not just in New York. Tell us about where else you are.
Yeah, so there's 2 things. The one thing I like to say about real estate, look through the lens of reality right now. If you developed it, interest rates are high, you're thinking you're going to be saved, you're not. Now look at it from that perspective and start figuring out what you're going to do. Because there's a great book by this guy, Sun Tzu, The Art of War, which is you can lose a battle, don't win the war. Sometimes you got to bounce. You got to take your loss and move on. Don't sit there long enough and let it be a cataclysmic failure. So I call it the lens of reality, which I used to never see. Oh, it's all going to work out. I'm an eternal optimist. Now I'm like, nah, it's done. It's a wrap. Move on. When it comes to capital advisory, as I was saying, that's revenue. Where do we invest? Into development, where we're principal developers. So those are our 2 lines of business. Capital advisory is agnostic. We're doing data centers in Cali. I'm doing multifamily in Pasadena. I'm doing new development in MIA. I'm doing new development in NYC. I don't care what the asset class is.
Mm-hmm.
When the capital is onboarded, regardless of the variability of how their money works, it's recorded and it's perfectly into a database that's recallable. So we're seeing any type of deal, data center deals, land deals, pre-dev deals. It doesn't matter when it comes to that revenue stream. As a principal developer, I'm really just effective in major cities. So I'm only looking at sort of busted deals, NPLs in those asset classes that come in from the funnel. So development is a non-scalable business. You got to choose what you love and get involved, right? The only scalability is to go bigger, bigger, bigger until you get your head chopped off. This is a scalable business. You always want to look at your business like what's scalable, right? Like you could do like your $1 billion banker. You can do billions because there's efficiencies in it. Otherwise, if you wanted to develop $1 billion, you better do a skyscraper somewhere.
Right. Absolutely. No, that's absolutely true. I mean, you look at every segment of business when you're looking to get to scale out, you have to find people that have the kind of the strengths that you don't have and vice versa. And that's how you create a winning team. And obviously when people come to you, you have a strength that they don't have. They may have the capital, they may have the opportunity, but they don't know how to facilitate it and put it all together. So you're that space, which I love. So, now you're doing a lot online. Talk to us a little bit about Real Tech Talk and maybe a couple notable guests that you've had on. I'd love our listeners to go over and check that out, check out what you guys are talking about over there.
So first and foremost, real estate and technology is not this mass media audience, So I'm going to drop names and you're like, yeah, no one knows. nobody knows these people. People always tell me, they're like, you have a big audience. I'm like, look, I'll sling any of your products. You got t-shirts, you got shirts you want me to talk about. I'd be like, this t-shirt makes me more money. Like, I don't care. The only thing that matters is when it's real estate and tech that I'm giving my credibility.
Yes.
So it's funny that we have this niche audience, which is dope. And they run a lot of dollars, but I'm not getting any like mainstream anything.
Right.
So I think about it differently than Real Tech Talk, although that is one platform, that is one place that we create content. The idea is, how are you top of mind to every person consistently sort of in your wheelhouse? So is it TikTok, Insta, LinkedIn, podcast? The idea is create content, right? The next idea is that content should strictly be through a lens of what you need for business. You're not seeing bikini shots of me on the beach. It's straight business. I'm either talking about real estate and technology or some type of motivation. So when you look at my page, it doesn't mean it's the essence of who I am. It is a marketing tool for me. So everyone says, well, how do you do content? How do you do content? It's like, just start, right? See what's resonating. It's an experiment. It's a feedback loop. Podcast, dope. Get some reels, post them bad boys, drive traffic to it. They love it. You know how many developers out there reach out to me because of their lack of understanding of technology? The podcast is taking these complex tech concepts, and me, I'm a Neanderthal. You got to make that straight up how it's going to work in the real world, in the real estate space or construction. That's a gift of mine. So if you're like, what's going on in tech as its application of real estate from another guy that I understand his vocabulary, boom, Real Tech Talk. Then it's other things. Talk about construction and development, right? I do reels on that. I have some great friends influencing brokers. You go and you create reels and you see what's resonating with that audience. Go on other people's podcasts. Now, what are you doing with that? That is a marketing funnel, and you have to understand what that means. Where are you driving that traffic to? I know people get millions of views. They're not picking up any data on the people that are searching there to go to a central database of recallable information. So you got to get into the way in which tech is changing how we operate.
No doubt.
So all that is,
you had this one guy on, Matt, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, for Title EQ. Is that a title company that you had on?
Okay. So we had this guy, Matt, right? We're talking about title company, right? So how's he looking at it? There's this 2023 book bestseller about creating efficiencies, any redundant task in your business. So he's a title company. It didn't change, but can you then create a flywheel of redundant tasks in order to drive more title? That's what we talk about. Brad Hargraves was on. Brad Hargraves was the guy who did it's a university on programming as well as Common, the largest co-living in the country, and how he perceives real estate. We had these women out of Harvard talking about ESG. That was an incredible episode. We had my friend Vekrum, who's at the forefront of AI and its application to real estate. We had my boy Andrew Weinrich, 9-time founder, now getting into the real estate and tech space. We had modular builders and what technologies and their applications are, right?
I
So
think it's
you
the concept is amazing. Of the first of all, I love the name, and second of all, I think you're right. The real estate world talking about tech more. You must be learning so much as you have these people. It's like a win-win. You're promoting your business, their business, and I'm sure you're learning things about how tech is kind of on the come up in these spaces. And you think about what the impact is going to look like long term, not even that long, 5-10 years from now in real estate. Where are you thinking as you compile all this information, like where do you think the future of things like title and loans, where do you think that's going from what you've learned?
So first and foremost, you hit the nail on the head. Like, how are you going to create an ecosystem of really, really brilliant people to want to chit chat with you, right? Like,
Right.
why do they come to talk to me? But if you can assist them in the way that they market and get their message out, all of a sudden you get to meet these incredible humans and you're helping them. And then they go, how can I help you? And it's like, you have to learn the companies in the space. Then you got to learn the actual technology and what its application is. Then you have to put together your own architecture of making that application of that technology to your business. Then you have to find the humans that get your message that you can retain in order to apply it. So it's this long process of getting there, of trial and error, but you should start it anyway. And that's what we did. Now let's talk about the future, right? What are the things that I think are so fascinating right now, right? Like, where's that real change? Well, I like the All In podcast. They're talking about agents, right? Creating agents from AI. Think about that. Any low-level task no longer needs you. The idea that we should be thinking about in real estate is basically, how can we get and generate so much more revenue with half the amount of people that work for you? They said, Sam Altman said, there will be $1 billion company with one person, right? Everything else will have been automated. So the idea for us is, how can we do just as many deals as some of the major players with a quarter of the staff? So we look for those efficiencies. The other thing I really am excited about, and this has been tech's problem in real estate, learn this new app. Yeah, you got to go learn a new language in order to apply it. And I can't even think about, I barely learned Gmail. How am I now going to learn this new app for project management software? The new ish is just a plug-in, right? You go, do you want to try our new thing? We're like, cool. But a boop, little tab not even a tab, on your Gmail, on your Outlook account. Click that. Boom. It already looked through all your ish. It's already telling you what you're missing, and it's immediately impacting your business, and you didn't even have to open up a new tab.
Right.
That to me is the future.
Wow.
I think you better be experimenting with AI. How do you experiment with AI, Eric? Again, get ChatGPT, start peppering it with questions. You just have to be open-minded and willing to watch a YouTube video and do it. They'll talk about it, do it, use it, see what it's doing. Then you'll be in the ecosystem of its change. I'm just surprised at how rare and how unique the way in which we look at it, because nobody wants to change. That is your opportunity.
You know what? And you're right. There's some companies that are on the cutting edge of this. Like you see Ryan Serhant just came out with Simple. It's an AI application that helps agents specifically essentially do their job, right? To have almost like a virtual assistant that's putting together comparables for you and, sending out emails, doing all these like administrative tasks that you usually have to do when you get back to your desk and you're just communicating it. It's incredible. And so watching these real estate companies and mortgage companies kind of go tech forward with some of this. We now have at Cross Country something called Ask CC, where basically it's like, hey, you ask them a guideline question and AI comes back. It shows you exactly where it is. Instead of taking 15 minutes to search for it, it's the answer's right there for you. And then they're paraphrasing the answer as well. So you don't have to read. So you don't have to search. You don't have to read. You just have to ask the question to somebody. So it's incredible. Using it can not only save time, but it can create these efficiencies in the way that you deliver whatever it is that you want to do, whether it's a presentation, whether it's a podcast, you want to ask questions. I've had people tell me, hey, like I would love to do video and stuff, but I don't know what content to come up with. I'm like, ask AI. AI will come up with a list of 30 different videos you could shoot and script them for you if you ask. It's amazing. So some people, really, there's a lot of people that aren't in this space yet, and it's very cool to see people that are leading the charge like yourself in this world.
I want to give you a secret though. I don't even know if I really want to say this.
Tell us.
Okay, but I'm going to say it anyway because F it. The idea that real estate has created a new technology is a fallacy. Okay, the technology is already there in other industries. It was probably created for the military. It probably had nothing to do with real estate. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that cross country creates an AI,
Mm-hmm.
Sirhan has an AI.
Right.
It doesn't mean anything. Okay. What is AI when we look at it? AI, when you really think about it, is we need a database of information. Well, if you have a database of information, meaning files, disparate data, I got Excel sheets, I got PDFs, I got emails, it's all coming from different lack of a common denominator of data. Okay. What AI is doing is making a common denominator, uploading all that data for it to be usable for you.
And we make it smarter. That's the thing. So when you have a company, right, you have a company that promotes it, packages it, explains how to use it, and then you're using it, now you're making it smarter. So whatever your line of business may be, it's becoming smarter by your utilization, and then it's kind of integrating these new things as time goes on. So that's when you say it doesn't matter, I think what you're saying is the tech is out there. People are kind of repackaging it and platforming it and saying, here's how we use it in our business. Here's what we're going to call it.
Exactly right. Yeah. Right? Like it already exists. It's there. But it's like, if I make it slightly easier for you to use in the cross country language or in the Sirhan language, it's more valuable. I just want you to know that if you knew like a first grader's education in it, you could skip that step, but maybe you don't want to. Maybe that's enough. And I think that that's okay for all humans. That's fine.
Well, it's kind of like the phone, right? The phone was out there, but like Apple, came up with their kind of version, and everybody, then you have Samsung, which is amazing how they have the flip version. Now there's these different, so it's kind of like that. AI is a technology, it's a product. And so how we're going to who's going to really lead the front in using it in efficient ways it's going to be fun to see who kind of develops what in that space.
And what I think you hit the nail on the head as well is proptech, technology and property, was trying to sell companies SaaS platforms in order to pay a fee. What we've realized when the market took a dump, it went down 80% in values and also 80% in investment. If you're like, yeah, I don't really like proptech, it wasn't a good investment. The smart people knew that it just needed to be proprietary to their business. So you go retain those people, you bring them in-house, you create it for your people to create efficiency. So cross-country creates its own, realizing, why am I going to buy someone else's? I need to just make it.
Right.
Sirhan realizes, get a program and your own engineer to then learn it and bring it in. Exactly. I'm interviewing these kids out of school now. They reach out to me and I'm like, cool, what do you do? And they're talking about their education. And I'm like, oh my God, like, all right. They're like, how is Mayor Adams' new policies going to change, the amount of new units coming to the market? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. What's your thesis? You're like, why am I talking to you about this? Like, what are you going to add value tomorrow? And if that person then said to me, so are you using AI? I've now programmed it. Yes, I love real estate. And yes, I want to be a part of it. And yes, but are you doing these simple things to create efficiencies in your business? I'd be like, come on board, right? Like, where's the value? Like, you're young, you grew up with the phone. Are you like, let me check your Gmail. I'm going to tell you how to be efficient on Gmail, where these types of emails go there, this goes there, here's an efficiency. I'd be like, boom, you're hired, right? Like, they keep thinking to talk to me about real estate. You'll learn real estate. Like, tell me about the application of efficiency to my business today, so I have less people 100%. Working for me, and I'll hire you tomorrow.
Yeah, because there's so many components of this that go into making it successful, not just knowing real estate. Nobody has a crystal ball, right? So you don't know what's going to come next. But back to your point, you're just consistently taking action. You're going to have a ton of wins. You're going to have some failures in between. And I love how you're kind of thinking about the next generation. You have the foresight that it takes to stay ahead in this industry, and probably any industry. All those skill sets transcend completely. I'm so happy that we had you here today. I think this was an amazing show. I'm looking forward to hearing more. For our audience, go over and check out the podcast. All of your information will be here in the description section. Go follow Eric, go connect with him, and show him some love online. And I'm sure he'll be showing you some love back.
And then obviously for my people, make sure that you follow the $1 Billion podcast. Like, we are all in this boat together, and all boats rise. So they better also follow back. You know what I'm saying?
Appreciate that. Yeah. Anything you guys need on this end, we all appreciate the support, the growth, and we're here for you. So hopefully you guys got a lot of great insight out of this. And thanks for joining us, Eric.
Anytime.
We'll see you guys soon.